you believe it? We are Premier League! Yes!
I love this town. I love this town. I love this town. You know what I love about this town is actually you. Everyone in it has got these massive souls.
We're Luton people, and that's what we care about.
Hello everyone, welcome along to another episode of the Luton Town Supporters Trust podcast. This time you are watching or listening the Aston Villa away preview episode of the podcast. Sunday afternoon for this one, if you wasn't already aware. Aston Villa are in Europe on Thursday night, so Sunday afternoon 2 o'clock kickoff, 2 p.m, not the usual 3 p.m. Joining me to have a look ahead to what should be a really entertaining game is the Lutonian journalist James Cunliffe, and Town fan Dan Barratt-Davis is with us again for this episode. Gents, how are we doing?
Absolutely fantastic. Buzzing for this game.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, looking forward to it. Yeah.
Okay, coming up, we'll have a look at our opponents, Aston Villa. Plenty to look at with regards to them. We'll have a look at the Town, some positives, some areas where we might be able to get out of them. As always, we'll look at some danger mans of the opposition, 3 of those in particular. And we will finish, as always, on this preview podcast with the score predictions, of which we are crap, apart from Dan, who has got one this season.
Can I have like half a point? Because I got the outcome as a comeback, and I said win, but let's not be pedantic.
Win 2-2.
No, I said we'd win. No, yeah, I said we'd win, but I said there'd be a comeback. That's the element I want you to focus on here.
Oh, right.
There'd be a comeback. Can I have half a point?
It's not quite a 2-1 at Everton win, though, is it?
No, it's not.
Not that I'll ever talk about it.
We will finish with our score predictions, and it'll be interesting to see if there's another 4-3 prediction, or if we'll go for something more realistic.
I did predict 2-2 at Forest, but that was in my own head, and I wasn't on here, so...
Yeah, after timers, not
I know, it's easier to say now.
Before I start, though, as always, thanks very much for all of your comments. Even if you're precious away fans, we welcome all comments, but particularly the positive ones. We really appreciate it. And as always, once again, we are recording at the Hightown Club. If you do hear a bit of background noise, they do have entertainment on downstairs. We're doing our best to drown all of that out, but sometimes sometimes some sneaks through. So we do apologise if that impacts your enjoyment. Okay then, James. Villa away. I watched their game against West Ham.
Yeah, me too.
Probably wish I didn't watch their game against West Ham, to be fair. Is it fair to say that this is the first time we come up against a truly sort of elite striker? But I know we came up against Son Heung-min, and I know we came up against Raheem Sterling, but Ollie Watkins, you know, he's just scored for England, hasn't he? He feels like the heir apparent to Harry Kane. He's the real, like, first sort of superstar striker, actual centre forward that we've come up against. Yeah,
I mean, at this moment in time, he's in the form of his life, isn't he? Unfortunately for us, he's absolutely on fire. You getting in the England side for the performances he's put in so far, but the goals, assists, pulling defenders out of position. It seems to have it all at the moment. It didn't seem to work for him under Gerrard at Villa, but under Emery, wow, he looks an absolute handful. And for the first time, I think, Luton came up against Son Heung-min, but he coming back from injury, and they did keep him quiet, which is good, but. At home, at the moment, Villa look unbelievable. Yeah,
they do. We'll come on to that in a second. But then when we get promoted, one of the good things about being in the Premier League, and I'm sure we're all enjoying it, is we get to go to these iconic grounds. And in any which way but where Aston Villa is an iconic ground, I know my old man's going to badger on about that 85 semi-final at Villa Park, but
it was against Everton, though.
It was against Everton,
and we've beaten them since, haven't we? So.
We have done, and hopefully we can look back on the fact that we'll beat Aston Villa when we do the review podcast. But iconic ground in English football. It was one of those grounds, wasn't it, that when the FA Cup semi-finals were where they should be, i.e. not at Wembley, Villa Park was often first on the list.
Yeah, definitely, and rightly so, because it's obviously been in Birmingham in the Midlands. It's close to where I live. You're at the central point. You need a central ground, and Villa Park, for all its history, its size as well, and it is, like them or hate them, it's still an iconic stadium, fantastic football club, and yeah, it's something that when the fixtures come out, you look out for that fixture, and you think, well, I'll make every effort to make sure I'm there.
Yep.
It's a beautiful stadium, one of the best looking stadiums in England.
I'm not a fan of claret and blue as a colour as such. So that aside, it is a nice stadium, and that means absolutely nothing to anybody, because it's still a nice stadium. Besides that, I'm not going to dress it up in orange or anything to make it look better, but that's not what I'm saying at all. But
yeah, no, it is one. I mean, if you think back, kind of like iconic goals, you got that Giggs goal in the FA Cup semi-final for Man United, where he goes on that run, doesn't he? That's at Villa Park, and as I say, obviously Luton's history involves that semi-final in '85, first meeting since 2002, the round after we beat Watford, courtesy of Matthew Spring's screamer. Dan's alluded to that fact as the fact that he's wearing the shirt that we wore back then for this episode of the podcast. So 21 years since we've been. Hopefully it's a much better result than it was that night, but this is a Villa side, James, who have won 11 on the trot either side of the summer at Villa Park. That don't look at their Premier League scores at home this season, because they do not make good reading for a Luton fan. Brighton have been done 6, West Ham have just been done 4, a couple of others have been done 3. It's like, jeepers, but these runs have got to win sometime, and who better to end them than little old Luton?
Yeah, I mean, it's their best run now since 1983, I was reading, and they've, fair play to them that they've started as good as they have. And, I was watching a couple of Villa podcasts, very good ones as well, and they were rightly very, very enthusiastic about their home form. And, I think nobody's really going to relish going up there. But, as we talked about against the Spurs one, Luton aren't necessarily expected to win against teams in the top 6, and they are firmly there. I think there's even some hope that perhaps they could even push on a bit more, maybe top 4. At the form they're going at the moment, we wouldn't argue with them. So I think the pressure's off Luton. That's the one thing, and that could be a benefit. Also, they've got to go and play in Holland against AZ Alkmaar on Thursday, and so it's a quick turnaround to then go and play on a Sunday, 2 p.m. So that's something to hang your hat on as well.
Yeah, it is, because they've played 3 Thursday night European games this season. They've got a win at Chelsea at the time where Chelsea were, the shit version of Chelsea, not the one that's recently revived itself. That's not taking nothing away from them. They've also got a draw against Wolves. Well, that's what we managed, and they've got a defeat at Liverpool, which I suppose you'd expect them to lose at Liverpool. Dan, relegation fodder a year ago, Aston Villa, I think it's fair to say, under Steven Gerrard. Unai Emery's come in, and I mean, considering he was meant to be this absolute shithouse at Arsenal, which obviously he wasn't. It's just that's how it was perceived because he was so close after Arsene Wenger. He has turned this lot around big time. Qualified them for Europe, which is an absolute fair play. To finish in the top 7 last season took some doing. That was, obviously finished above the likes of Tottenham, and we've already seen what they're doing. Chelsea, they finished above them as well. Credit to them. They'll go into this game, into the weekend, in 5th place in the Premier League. Obviously, we're recording this before their Thursday night European game as well, so we don't know how they've got on in that game, but they're competitive in Europe. He's completely transformed this side around. Yeah, they've spent a few quid. Moussa Diaby cost a few quid. 1 or 2 of the defenders also cost a fair bit of money, but he's got Watkins going, and there's a couple of others. Douglas Luiz, he can't stop scoring at the minute, and it's like all of a sudden this is like the Villa of old, Villa going back. I mean, this is the 2nd game in succession that we've played a former European Cup winner. Hopefully I don't sound too much like Graham Jones there, but it is true. It's going to be, you can't dress it up any other way. It's going to be a tricky and a tough afternoon.
It will be, and for Emery to do that in such a short space of time as well, from taking up, I think Gerrard was still in charge at this time last year.
I think he took over literally the Tuesday of this week a year ago.
Was it? I mean, it's outstanding and virtually the same set of players as well. And I kind of wish we were playing Dick Emery rather than Unai Emery. Because
That's one for the kids. That's one reference for the kids.
You don't know who Dick Emery is, ask your granddad.
That would be nice. I mean,
but yeah, no, full credit to Villa. They've been brilliant at home. And I'm not just saying this because my boss is a Villa fan and he may well end up watching this. Can I have Monday off, please? But no, they are a very good side. I mean, let's not forget as well, like 3 or 4 years ago, they were in the Championship. And to make the steps that they've made, yes, they've already got the infrastructure in. We spoke about Villa Park earlier, which is one of the best grounds in the country. And it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, they've got the fan base. They turn in, week out. They churn out 40,000 people every week, every home game, which is brilliant. Just a little bit of mismanagement off the field, which ended up in them getting relegated in the first place, which it shouldn't happen. But and I said this about Newcastle, you're never too big to go down anyway. But they've done well to transform and turn it all round. The blip with Gerrard, it started well, didn't quite end well. And they're just on fire at the moment. And like I said, I really wish it was Dick Emery rather than Unai Emery. Ask your granddad, because they just look dangerous, and we're going to have to be really on it. You know, we spoke in the last one, the Forest podcast, about little mistakes creeping in, being intelligent enough to work out to stop those mistakes from happening. We are really going to have to, because the way Ollie Watkins is playing and all. They've got options on the bench as well. Got people like Leon Bailey that can come in and affect games. And from what I understand, they were going to start phasing him out. But yeah, it's going to be probably a tough watch for us, maybe, but it'll still be a good game of football, I've no doubt, because we haven't really been done by anybody. And obviously, I hope we don't get done Sunday. But this is the Premier League, and this is one of the team that I would expect to push the top 6 at least. That they are as good as they're looking at the moment. I
mean, if we do, as I've just alluded to, we'll be in good company, won't we? Brighton, West Ham, to name but 2 that have been done by them this season. I mean, I've just mentioned 11 home games unbeaten on the trot, but we go there having not lost either of our last 2 away games. Should have been 3 because there was nothing in the Fulham game either. So we kind of got something about us on the road. So there's no foregone conclusion here. It's it's not a case of Villa turn up with 11 players and they beat us. The least we can do is make them work hard, and we will do that. Yeah, absolutely. And you've probably got to look at it as that they've just come off that back of the result against West Ham 4-1, which is unbelievable, really. And they're rattling in the goals. They've stuck a hatful past Brighton as well. But West Ham before that would have considered themselves around about the same level as Aston Villa and a sort of rival in the league. So they're both going to want to go out there and play, I suppose. Although we did see when West Ham came to Luton, they were quite happy to sit back and play on the counter, which is probably the right way to play against Villa, because I've seen that they play a high line. I heard a couple of their podcasts say about that as well, which could be useful counter-wise. Hello, Chio Ogbeni.
Chio, yeah, and get Doughty and Chio going at them, which could be a benefit. But they're a formidable side at the moment. Goals everywhere, all over the place as well. I mean, if you stop Watkins, then Diaby's going to score. Douglas Luiz has scored
6 straight
home games. I think he's the first Villa player to do that in the Premier League, straight home games. The number is pretty frightening. So, when you look at it like that, it's pretty daunting. But Luton are not going to be expected to have the ball. They keep it tight and keep it horrible. Would probably be my advice, wouldn't it?
Yeah, we could do with Sunday afternoon being like pissing down a rain, really windy, horrible football conditions. So it's obviously going to be perfectly sunny and everything else. Clocks have gone back, by the way, so make sure your clocks go back. Otherwise, you're going to miss kickoff as well. Let's talk about formations, because I kind of get the feeling this is going to be a tactical sort of thing. We always come up against 4-3-3. We're not coming up against 4-3-3 this time. We're going to come up against some version of 4-4-2. They don't tend to have wingers, do they, by rights? They pick 4 central midfielders, but 2 of them will tend to make their way onto the wing, or the two will go through the middle, and the strikers will make their way onto the wing. I mean, it's really, if you haven't watched them, keeping tabs on them, it's really difficult. But it's not going to be a front three like a Chelsea or like a West Ham, Fulham, those kind of things. It's literally a 4-4-2. And to be fair to the two forwards, Watkins and Diaby, they've struck an instant relationship. I think they've combined for the most chances in the Premier League, setting each other up. So that's obviously a threat that we've got to counteract. And it was interesting that we went 4-4-2 at Notts Forest, Dan. Obviously it was to try and get a result in the Notts Forest game, but I wonder if it was with this game in mind as well, because we would need to match them up. But it's that central midfield in particular that's kind of a concern. If they've got four in the centre of the park of the quality of Douglas Luiz in particular, and we've only got two, 4 into 2, it don't go, does it? We're going to get outnumbered. So do we change? Do we not change? I mean, it's an interesting. It's definitely a question. I mean, I'm sure Rob watched the game. I mean, hell, if we watched the game, I'm sure he watched the game.
Yeah, that'd be dumb.
Against West Ham.
Yeah.
So he'll know what he's coming up against. But knowing and stopping, as we've seen, is two different things, really.
They certainly are. And in terms of making changes, I wouldn't change too much from the Forest game. I think it rides from fitness of Reece Burke, depending on how bad that injury is, which at the time of recording we don't know the extent of, and who we've got available. Whether he thinks Barkley's worth starting, which if he's fit, I think he has to. Also, I mean, do we go with a 4-4-2 like we did at Forest, like you say, or do we go back to a flat back three with wing backs, pack the midfield, play with two up front? Either or, really. I think I'd probably go with a 3-5-2, play with wing backs, just because you've got to look at that midfield. Like you said, they're very dangerous, and you've got to just get the bodies in there. Maybe even sacrifice a striker and play 6 in the middle. I mean, just try and match them up. But whoever's in there has got to be on it. We can't be having this. But he's done so well to get this far, sort of thing. And I'm not pointing fingers at anybody when I say that either, because that could be any one of the midfielders we got. But you've got to be, whatever system we play, it's got to be right, and we've got to match up what Villa have got, which is going to take some doing anyway. So there's two options there. And
yep. Let's finish on Villa then, before we start focusing on Luton, which is obviously what we're here for. 3 danger men. I mean, Ollie Watkins, I alluded to it at the start of the episode. He's got 5 goals, he's got 5 assists. Don't need me to tell them that he's the danger man. England international. Obviously a far cry from the fella that we ran into when he played for Exeter back in the day. He's kicked on an awful lot since then. And whether it be Mengi, whether it be Lockyer, someone's going to need to have a real good game to keep him quiet.
Yeah, I mean, I think statistically only Haaland and Salah are better than him at combined goals and assists this season.
Oh, they're not bad, are they? Then?
Pretty good, those two. Yeah. So
they're all right.
He's a relentless pest as well. He does so much selfless running. He's going to be hard to keep tabs on. But I don't think you can. In the old days when there was a danger man, you go, well, go man to man and just somebody track him all over the place. But he'll love that because he'll pull you out of position.
Yeah.
And then Luiz comes in. That's probably why he's got so many goals as well. That's probably one of the reasons. That's probably a myriad, but that's one. He's such an effective forward at the moment, and he's almost going under the radar as well. He's not really getting the credit he deserves. Whoever picks him up, well, it's going to be multiple people picking him up wherever he is on the pitch. They are really going to have their work cut out for him, but he can do it all. He's a fox in the box. He's decent with his head. He runs all day. Have I bigged him up enough?
Yeah, well, I mean, his assist count tells you that he can do it all as well, doesn't it? I mean, wherever he is on the pitch, like you say, it's not one person who needs to pick him up, but wherever he is on the pitch, we need to know where he is because he's a danger man. James just alluded to Douglas Luiz's goal record. this is not a holding midfielder who simply scores worldies. A lot of these goals are penalties, so there is a kind of caveat to that. But equally, if you score in 6 straight games, you're doing something right. There's 2 things with this guy. I mean, obviously he's the penalty taker. He's a Brazil international. You know, you don't get that shirt if you can't play football. But the one thing we need to watch out with this fella, he shoots from corners. And, you know, with the best will in the world, we have fallen asleep on corners a couple of times. So whoever's at the near post, stay awake, because this fella does legitimately shoot from corners. He scored against Newcastle straight from a corner last season. He almost scored against West Ham on Sunday from one. Just because he's taken the corner, do not expect it necessarily is going to go to one of their players. He will have a shot from one of these corners.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure Rob would have informed the players and they'd start working on that. Might be worth bringing Keith Keenan for the week, because if we could learn one lesson is that when a player scores from a corner, don't then stop him taking corners. But yeah, no, we're good. On a serious note, for any Villa fan wondering who Keith Keenan is, Google it. Luton v Oxford 2010, and the rest is history. And we actually stopped him taking them after that. So well done, Luton. But no, we're going to have to be really on it right from the start. And this week, I think, is going to be about, well, as it always is, about the next opposition. But Villa have a lot more strengths than a lot of other sides that we've played so far do. This isn't. We're not talking about the 8-team mini league that we've been used to the last few games, or certainly most of the season so far. You know, these are, like I said, they're a top side, and they're pushing to be one of the top sides in the country, and they've got the good makings of it, like you say, with the likes of Douglas Luiz, Moussa Diaby, Ollie Watkins, etc. So
threats all over as well, though.
There's threats.
I got Matty Cash pops up, and
Matty Cash, the local Polish international.
Matty Kashki.
But yeah, that's it. I mean, he's not shit at all. Neither's that Luca Dean either. You know, he can ping a cross or two in as well, and they're good defenders, and they're good at what they do. But whilst we seem to be bigging Villa up a lot as we are, and rightly so. You know, the table doesn't lie. They're 5th in the league. They're very good at what they do, and they've smashed literally everybody that's come to Villa Park this year, apart from Everton in the Cup. That doesn't mean to say that we can't go there and grab something. You know, and like we said, we're going to have to be on our A game, obviously, and we're going to have to do our homework. We might have to do a bit of overtime. Might have to leave out of the gym in exchange for a bit more time out on the grass, working on more drills and stuff. Whatever it takes, and we've just got to hope that something happens in Holland in the week, and in the Netherlands in the week, that slows them down a little bit.
Yeah, but I mean, you've legitimately got to talk about all their strengths, really, because they are that good. But if you've also got to say, there's no point going up there if you don't think you're going to get something, and that's the mentality of the Luton side at the moment.
That's what I mean. Like, we're not going to go in there and try and keep the score down. I think that's not the right attitude at all. And I'm not being arrogant when I say that Luton can get a result there. Of course we can.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. This game is very much on. I mean, you mentioned that they're not in the bottom 8 league. No. This is very much on a par with Tottenham. We bigged up all the Tottenham threats. They delivered. Thankfully, they didn't deliver in goals, but they delivered in football. And it's hard to see Aston Villa not delivering in that regard. I mean, we're not going to flag the goalkeeper up as a danger man or anything like that, but we've got a World Cup winning goalkeeper in goal for them. You know, it's crazy. The one thing I would say, for all of the home form that they're showing, only Everton have failed to score there in the Premier League this season, and Everton aren't exactly the most prolific when it comes to goals anyway.
Saying nothing about Everton, great club.
The third man then that we're flagging up, I mean, they both mentioned him, Moussa Diaby. Usually, James, when foreign players come over, they take a while to settle in. This fella hasn't. He's hit the ground running. Him and Watkins formed a really good partnership. He's got pace, he can finish, he's got a pass in him. He was actually quite quiet against West Ham. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know if a quiet game's followed by a monster game. If it is, I hope it's in Europe on Thursday rather than against us. But once again, whoever's on the pitch, they need to make sure they know where he is.
Yeah, well, quiet is relative, isn't it, when you're in a partnership that's on fire, as him and Watkins are? I mean, because if he's not doing the business to the level he has been, he's still a great player anyway, is in great form, then Watkins will come along and do it as well. I mean, I don't foresee that Aston Villa are really going to change much from what we saw against West Ham. They started 4-4-2 and went very attacking. Why would they change? And the fact that they're racking up the goals against so maybe that's a benefit, that you sort of know how they're going to play. It's one thing knowing how you're going to play, and then another thing stopping it, isn't it? It's the old Mike Tyson quote about boxing. But he's come in, and to be, I mean, the amount of goals he's got is impressive, but I think he's assisted as much as Watkins has. And if you're talking Watkins up, then you've got to say that he's a very good player as well. I mean, that's almost an understatement, really, isn't it? But yeah, whoever plays in the back line for Luton, and obviously that's probably up for grabs at the moment because of the injury situation. We all know that Reece Burke tends to be out for lengthy spells, but he is suffering, although he did come back after we thought he might be out for a while recently. And Amari Bell, by the sounds of it, is on his way back close, Rob Edwards said so.
And Gabe Osho.
Yeah, I mean, bench when he at Forest.
The only thing there, I'd imagine, is that
He needs some time.
Yeah, as good as Gabe Osho is, and as much as we like him, he's not played in the Premier League yet, so he'll have to get over an injury and get up to speed straight away against one of the most lethal strike partnerships there are in the league at this moment in time. So I don't think that would be probably the best.
He's not played in 5 months either. So
well, in that case, it'll be another 5 months because they were all bloody lethal partnerships and strike partners and everything else.
We'll just put him in against Liverpool and he could chop Salah into the main stand. That's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. That's no. You might well be right. You're obviously defensively we've got one or two issues, but let's have a chat about how we can impose ourselves on them. James mentioned it earlier, Dan, and it was full of it in the commentary against West Ham. They play this high line. It's pretty much on the halfway line, and it's well known. They don't hide from it. Unai Emery regularly talks about it, and he says, that's how I play. That's how my teams play their football. They're not going to change from that. Sometimes it means they get battered 5-1 at Newcastle, for example. But on the flip side of that, obviously it has the rewards that we've just spoken about. But we have players who can take advantage of a high line. Chio Ogbeni would be one immediately who can do that. I mean, Jacob Brown's got a bit of pace about him as well. They're the ones that we're going to have to get on the ball. Certainly Chio, whether he does it on Luca Digne's side, on the right-hand side, like he would have been against Notts Forest, or he goes the other side against our Polish friend, Matty Cash. He's the one, isn't he? He's that threat who can just make them think a little bit, because if he times his run, no one's catching him, is it? So, I mean, Conser's a good defender, to be fair. There's a lot of people saying he should be playing for England. Wouldn't necessarily disagree with that.
Is he English, Conser?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He can't play for England if he's not.
Well, I just didn't think he was English, that's all. Don't know what made me think that. Apologies to Conser.
He is English.
Forgot to do my research on him, sorry.
He's a good defender, but even he's not catching him. So he feels like, I mean, he's the key outlet in every game we play, isn't he? But he feels like an even more of a key outlet in this game. If Chio has a real good game, we could get some joy. Yeah,
definitely. And that's notwithstanding that they haven't done their own work on Chio and hopefully don't knock him out in the first battle.
Got to get near him first, haven't you?
Well, exactly. This is it. Chio is very tricky. I can't put that into a sentence.
You did right there.
Yeah. But yeah, no, you would fancy, like, if we can clear a line, stick Chio up top and just clear our lines, get the ball to Chio and he'd just run through him. We've got Tatty Chong as well. I mean, if he can remember to take the ball with him and don't trip up on himself, or can see where he's going with his lovely hairstyle.
Well, I mean, the bright side...
If he starts, I mean...
Well, yeah, that is true. But the bright side with Chong is obviously former Birmingham player. you're always up for it against your former rivals, aren't you? And of course, we've got potentially two starting former Aston Villa players. Everyone knows that Marvelous Nakamba was former Aston Villa player, but Ross Barkley did have a season there as well.
Yeah, he was on loan, wasn't he?
On loan there. Do you see Ross Barkley starting this game?
Yep. After the impact he had
That would
against
be
Forest.
for Chong, presumably.
Yeah, probably. Chong did enough to get into the side. That's probably where you see it. Chong did great in his cameo against Tottenham to get into the starting lineup at Forest. And if you go in by those sorts of rules and the way Rob Edward liked to do things, then you would imagine that Ross Barkley comes in for the impact he had against Forest as well. So he probably starts. And I think when you come up against these sides in the top six and sides that are flying, you're going to need that nous and experience. And he looks like he's like on the verge of a really good moment, doesn't he, Ross Barkley? And if he can turn that into a spell, then that would be fantastic. And you want to go and play against your former sides, and he's played against two of them so far. So did he play against Everton?
No, he didn't.
Didn't play against Everton.
They've come up against two of them so far, but this is another one. So I think he starts. We know Marvelous and Nakamba is going to be playing as well, so that will be the two of them playing against their old side.
Yeah, I mean, if Barkley does start, he's certainly someone who can put Chio through. The other one, for all they've got good defenders, Pau Torres, fair play, and as I just mentioned, lots of people think Ezri Konsa should be playing for England. Whether that's because of Konsa or whether that's because of who does play for England, I don't know. But I do like Konsa as a defender. But
He's good.
The one thing that I've seen more and more game by game is Carlton Morris is a Premier League attacker that no defender likes, and he'll keep them too honest, Carlton Morris. So, and he's also got enough pace that if he's through on goal, he'll get away from the defence as well. So, could be a big afternoon for Carlton as well. Obviously, he's gone a couple of games without scoring. He'll want to get on the score sheet, as all strikers do, and he can have some joy as well. These kind of defenders that like to play a bit of football, they strike me as the kind of defenders that Morris likes to go up against, because he can be physical against them, he can be rough, and he can be tough, and that's exactly what he's got. So if we can give Carlton some decent ball, there's no reason at all why he can't have some joy against this defence. I mean, yes, they're going to have a lot of joy against us, but we can have some joy against them as well.
Yeah, I think so. Carlton, we all know from watching him for the last year and a bit, nobody really works harder than him, and he'll give 100%. I don't believe in this 110% nonsense, because you can't get higher than 100%. But he will always give everything. Let's say that instead. And like you say, he loves a physical battle. The stronger the centre half, the more he loves it, because he's a player. And from watching the interviews that he's done and listening to him, and I've spoken to him a couple of times, he likes the challenge. In fact, he relishes a challenge. And if you want players for your big game mentality, you want someone like Carlton Morris in your side. And yes, all right, like you just said, he hasn't scored for a couple of games, but he doesn't seem to let that affect him. If you watch him very closely, he's always looking for the next pass, for the next ball. Where can he play it after that? His reading of the game's fantastic. His concentration levels are phenomenal. I think I said off camera to you, he's probably the hardest working centre forward I've seen play for Luton for a long time, and I think we're going to use his strengths a lot this season. And he's the best thing about him is, like I said, he's hungry, he always wants to improve, and he's desperate to prove that he's a Premier League striker, and he's very quickly getting there rather than slowly adapting. He's very quickly adapted, I think, and he's going to be certainly someone that will give Villa something to think about, definitely.
Yeah, scored goals in 2 of Town's 5 away games this season, Carlton Morris, so certainly likes a goal on the road. And obviously last season pretty much every away game was Morris 1-0. Thanks for coming. This won't be 1-0. I think we're all fairly confident that we can say that.
Might
but
be 2-0.
If Morris scores,
Joking.
then happy days. Indeed. Hey, look, this is going to be a tough one, but it's going to be a great away day. Look, they're in a bad away day in the Premier League, is there really? maybe 1 or 2 to be fair. Hello Burnley, but you know, in the main, this is going to be a great away day. This is exactly what we got promoted for, to take on sides like these on their own patch with absolutely nothing to lose, and let's see what we can do. You know, we were being written off against Tottenham, could have come away from that with a win. You only need someone to dive for some unknown reason, and who knows, you're back in the game then, aren't you? So yeah, tough assignment, but let's go there and enjoy it. It's going to be over 3,000 Luton fans. It's sold out in the Luton end already. Sunday afternoon, that's a different thing for us as well, isn't it? So that's something that we'll have to get used to. We've kind of coped with all the different kickoff times and everything else in this league pretty well, but I don't recall us playing on a Sunday afternoon very often. So we're like London buses, we've got 2 of them coming up in succession. We'll worry about Liverpool at another time though, but we're going to finish this podcast as we always do with our score predictions. Dan, as you're the only one who's hit one correctly this season, how are you going with this one?
Pressure's on.
Yeah. Luton fans aren't going to like this, but I think we're going to lose 2-1 because
I don't know. It might be 1 or 2 quite happy to take.
I think
happy
I would
to take it, but would take it.
Realistically, I'd take 0-0 right now, but I can't see them turning us over because nobody has yet, and I don't think people are going to turn us over. Like, you know, we see a lot in the comments of these videos when we've said something a bit wrong about a certain club, and they go, "Oh, I hope we stuff you 3-0, 4-0, 5-0, or whatever." You know, it never happens, and I can't see that changing. Plus, I think, you know, we're getting more and more adapted to the level as well. I mean, Villa's going to pose, with the greatest respect to the clubs we've already played, Villa are going to pose a different threat. But I still think that we're sort of getting there in terms of where we want to be in order to stay up. I think we'll be able to close the gap a little bit, and it might be a fine margin again. That's what I'll base that on. So,
given the propensity for goals in this game, you might have gone a week early with your 4-3 prediction. But how are you going with this one?
Well, there's absolutely no way Luton are getting their first clean sheet at Villa Park. I can't see that whatsoever. But
we'll just store this for the review podcast, just in case, boys. In defence, you want to prove him wrong? Crack on.
Please do.
Yeah.
Please do prove me wrong.
show this to Tom Lockyer straight away.
I am going to be positive. Positive to an extent, relatively positive. I think that because they've gone to Forest, they've scored 2 goals. I think it'll be 2-2. Point. Oh. I said 2-2-2 there, didn't I? I can't beat that.
No.
2-2.
You've done a Graham Poll. 3 of the same. We need to conflab on this before we do it, because that's exactly the same score that I'm going with, 2-2.
Okay.
Good enough at Forest. Listen, it's going to be hard work. No point in dressing it up. Rob's not going to dress it up as anything different. He's quite happy to admit when the going's going to be tough, and that's good, and I like that. Nathan kind of shirked that, didn't he? He refused to talk about the opposition, and then, like you mentioned about that Mike Tyson quote, when we were punched on the nose, we didn't really know how to cope because we haven't discussed it and we haven't kind of thought about that situation, whereas under Rob we really do think about that situation. There's a potential for Aston Villa to be a little flat. We mentioned their results earlier in this podcast after a European game on a Sunday. Not just Aston Villa, is it? A lot of teams that go to Europe on a Thursday night don't get up to the heights that you'd expect of them on the Sunday. It doesn't necessarily mean to say they won't win, but they don't hit the kind of heights of them. Kind of what I'm saying is that West Ham performance might be above where they're going to perform in this game. Obviously, we hope so. And Luton aren't going to give up. They've shown that. They've shown it every single game. They've shown it last season. They've shown it in seasons gone by. Luton will play until the 98th, 99th minute, or however long it is. And who knows, it might be that 98th or 99th minute as they're tiring after a Thursday game where we finally get back and get something out of the game. 2-2, we'll all take a point from this game. I'm absolutely sure I can speak for the other 2 guys here and probably most of you out there. If we get a point from this one, it'll be fantastic, particularly bearing in mind that it's Burnley against Bournemouth this weekend too, so anything we can get to nullify that result, because obviously someone's going to pick up a point, if not 3, that would help. So yeah, 2-2 for me and James, 2-1 to Aston Villa for Dan. I
hope I'm wrong.
If he's got that right, we won't be bigging that particular correct score up when we do the review show. Just as a heads up,
I never do.
The review podcast for this game will be out slightly later than usual. That is because we're going to the game in Birmingham and we will not get back in time to record it ahead of where we usually like to release it on a Monday. It may well be the Tuesday that gets released. But if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, you'll know exactly when the review episode drops and you'll be able to check that out. That is it for this episode of the podcast. Thanks very much to James and Dan for their company. Thanks to you for watching and listening. Thanks to the Hightown Club, as always, for being fantastic hosts of the podcast. Thanks to Sean Grant and the Wolfgang for the intro music. And, of course, to Ed Smith Creative for all of the podcast designs that you can see both on our set and where it is that you pick up the podcasts. One thing we've noticed on this, since we've done these podcasts, particularly in video, an awful lot of overseas hatters are getting in touch, either commenting on the YouTube channel or on social media. If you are an international hatter and you'd like to be put in touch with groups in your country, get in touch with us. We are holding a page on our website for a lot of international groups. If you're running a group, we can certainly big that up for you. Or if you just want to find a group of fellow hatters that you can watch games with, can interact with and support Luton Town and post the message of the Hatters worldwide, do get in touch and we'll point you in the right direction. All the details on our website, www.lutontownsporterstrust.com. That is it. Thanks, boys, for your company. Thanks to you for watching and listening. And if you're going on Sunday, be loud, be proud, and enjoy the game. And very much, come on, you Hatters.
Can you believe it? We are Premier League! Yes!
I love this town. I love this town. I love this town. You know what I love about this town is actually you. Everyone in it has got these massive souls.
We're Luton